I am from Savannah, Georgia. I was born right here at the home of Savannah State University. And at the time I was growing up, I grew up during the transition, actually in the 60s. I was born in the 50s, but I actually remember segregation.
Oh, I grew up in Mississippi. We say a stone's throw from Elvis Presley's hometown in Tupelo. And I'm the oldest of 7 who grew up as sharecroppers in Mississippi. That's northeast Mississippi, which, as you know, is near Memphis. And we lived a very, I would say, segregated life, even though we lived on a big farm. We were sharecroppers. We lived on the overseer's farm with 2 other white families. And I must say that we as kids and those families, because everyone was so poor, we behaved as though we were almost like one big family, even though we knew that we were living under segregated circumstances. But the relationship between and among us was really great. We borrowed sugar and flour and money from each other, but we went to a segregated school, that's for sure. One-room school in Mississippi.
I went to Catholic school, and my teachers were all Irish Catholic nuns from 1st through 12th grades. So not much negatively. It was like just be respectful, and I think that had to do with how they were brought up. My father was of the age where he could remember when black men got lynched. Respectful. If a police officer stops you, go ahead and say yes sir or whatever. You know, he's right. And be respectful, basically. But in some people's opinion, that is Uncle Tomism. That is what is their opinion, and that's okay. I really don't care a whole lot, but that is how I grew up.
Well, I don't know if it's really so much to tell us, but we practically lived it every day. You know, we saw them going to the big, beautiful schools with brand new school books, and we had old books that were torn and tattered, no place to write our names. My dad always told us to try to be honest and be decent people to everybody, and that it would be necessary to work hard, always be honest, and go to the field every day and not play around and work. Again, he told us that we would always have to do generally better than white people in order to even just break even with them. That we had to outshine them in a sense.
I remember when there was in Daffin Park. Daffin Park is on Victory Drive. They used to have a JC annual kiddie fair that was segregated. It used to look like so much fun. It reminds me so much of Yolanda King's Funtown. Kind of got over it. You know, it wasn't very, very brutal, but I remember that unfairness, moments of feeling that unfairness. I do.
Oh yeah, I think in some instances where we would go on the road we were not allowed to sit in the front of the bus. You know, that we always sit in the back, and going to the theater on Saturday, we were always, whenever we could afford to go, we would always sit in the back, way up there in the balcony, in the back in the dark. And we'd go to the store to try to buy something, and we could never put it on. We could always just hold it up against our bodies, because blacks were not allowed to try, clothes on in the stores. We accepted that. We accepted that and said, one day, I'm going to be out of this. I think that was the idea we had in Mississippi. One day I'm going to be out of this, and the first chance I have, I'm going north. And that's when, I went to Ohio to school, and it was like escaping. There were many incidents that happened in Mississippi that told us that we were black and things weren't going to change. So we accepted it. We accepted it in a sense because we knew that not one person could change it. Even though I rode, as I said, to my children, my husband, I rode in the front of the bus long before Rosa Parks did, because when I was little, and in the, I would say, early 50s, my father asked the bus driver to let me sit behind him because I got sick if I rode in the back of the bus. And he allowed me to sit right in back of him to ride to Tupelo to get some vaccinations or whatever else it was necessary for us to have. But we lived a very, very impoverished lifestyle, very impoverished, very rigid. My parents moved out of Ohio after Emmett Till because my mom really feared for her sons. So they just packed up and moved to Ohio.
And I remember vaguely some talk about Emmett Till. I remember that kind of stuff vaguely.
Oh, I was very close to the idea of Emmett Till. We were right there in Mississippi, because on many occasions, white people would come to our door, knock on our screen, little flimsy screen door, and say they were looking for somebody. And my dad would always come to the door with his double barrel shotgun, always, to ask, who is it? Because he said he always made the statement before Emmett Till, and particularly after, that he would kill somebody and go to jail himself before he would allow the people to take his boys. He had 4 boys, you see. But we were aware, very much aware of what happened to Emmett Till. Everyone was very sad. We didn't feel. I guess my dad did feel helpless, because the only thing to do was to escape that area. We saw the any inequity and the lack of punishment for those who committed crimes against black people, and it was just something that happened almost every day.
There's got to be justice somewhere at some point. Even though I was young, like I'm saying, I was of the age when I realized people like Martin Luther King had that cause. So I kind of knew that something's going to change. I had that feeling. That story by Charles Chestnut I taught called The Dog, and I mentioned it in class again today, and it's about that moment when you can, if you could kill a white person, would you? In fact, I said it reminds me of that ABC broadcast, what would you do if you were in a position to avenge the death of a loved one, and you have the person in your chair and his neck under your, just right there, you could kill him, would you? And I think we have to keep looking at our literature and our history to make us better people, stronger people, wiser people, smarter people, and keep leaping, just keep surprising them, keep destroying the myth, breaking the stereotype. Just keep doing it.
Yes, I think eventually race will not, that's a long time coming though, I think, that race will not matter. And it has changed significantly. And the way that I think it can change is education first, because I think along with education comes green power. I think that we look at some of the players, football players, basketball players, I think money has transcended some of the racism and bias. But I think education is the key, and I think we should not look towards just a few of us who've made it as a way of saying we have arrived. I think it has to be widespread. I think it has to be blacks as a group and as a race, and we have a long way to go. A long way to go. We are reminded every day when we step out into the world to either borrow money or to engage in anything that not too many black people have, allegiance to. We know that we're reminded constantly, hey, you're black. And we're still going through that whole process. Now, as long as we limit blacks in various areas,
I think it puts us in a very admirable stage in some eras. Racism kind of changes its face every generation or so. It's like we tell the same story. Okay, it's true. So we're in a very admirable place right now in terms of our having an African American president. We do have black CEOs all over the place, and and a number of black people who are doing quite well and in very respectful high positions. So we're in a good place, but we still have this element of hatred that's out there towards us, and maybe that's how it will always be, but I think we have to keep putting it into historical perspective, not house any hatred in our own bodies and hearts for them. Rise above it. Rise above it.
It tells me that racism is alive and well.